verse 135 of the Quran, we read, "And who can forgive sins except Allah?" Now, if Allah, according to the Quran, is the only one who can truly forgive sins, should a mere prophet claim this ability for himself? In Mark 2, a paralyzed man is brought to Jesus to be healed. Jesus says to the man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The teachers of the law started wondering, why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? Exactly what the Quran says. Jesus then heals the man so that everyone would know that he has the authority, even on earth, to forgive sins.
Okay, so I want to point out the serious flaws in this methodology. Now, according to the Quran, only Allah or God can forgive sins, right? But if we go to the Bible, where in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament included, does it say only God can forgive sins? Nowhere does it say that according to the Bible, only God can forgive sins. So that's the first part David Wood conveniently left out. Because nowhere in the Bible does it say only God can forgive sins. So that's the first part. That's the first part that we need to keep in mind. The second part, and this is the more problematic part, is that Jesus was not the only person, according to the New Testament, to forgive sins, right? So we read in John chapter 20, verse 23, records Jesus as saying, "If you forgive sins, they are forgiven." So Jesus is telling the disciples that they are able to forgive sins. So if the Pharisees were right and only God can forgive sins, then Jesus, God, and the disciples were all God, because they all had the authority to forgive sins. And notice in Matthew chapter 9, verse 8, it says, "They praise God who had given such authority to men." So Jesus had the authority. He was given the authority, to forgive sins. But regardless, the Quran and the Bible are different, because according to the Quran, only Allah can forgive sins. According to the Bible, nowhere in the Bible does it say that only God can forgive sins. This idea, nowhere in the Bible does it say, and when I mean Bible, I mean the Old and New Testaments, does it say only God can forgive sins. So the truth is that, according to the Bible, God grants the authority to forgive sins as he pleases. He granted that authority to Jesus and the apostles. So again, the Quran is clear. Only Allah can forgive sins. The Bible is not clear, because again, no verse in the entire Old Testament or New Testament does it say only God can forgive sins. So this argument backfires on David Wood, or it doesn't work for David Wood, because the Quran is saying only Allah can forgive sins. The Bible, nowhere in the Bible does it say only God can forgive sins. So the Quran and the Bible are different. The Quran is saying Allah is the only one who can forgive sins. The Bible is not saying that. So, there's a big problem with his analysis, because again, according to John chapter 20, verse 23, Jesus gave the disciples the authority to forgive sins. He says, "If you forgive anyone of sins, they are forgiven." So again, if the Pharisees are right and only God can forgive sins, then God, Jesus, and the disciples are all God, because they all had the authority to forgive sins. But again, this argument doesn't work, because the Quran is clear in who can forgive sins. The Bible is not clear, because the Bible is just nowhere in the Bible does it say only God can forgive sins. So this argument backfires against any Christian who uses this argument. Who uses this argument, well, Jesus forgave sins, therefore he's God. That argument backfires, because according to John 20:23, the disciples were given authority to forgive sins by Jesus, and Jesus was given the authority to forgive sin. He didn't always have it. You see, if you read Matthew chapter 9, verse 8, it says, that this authority was given to Jesus by God. Jesus did not always have that authority. He was granted or given that authority. So this shuts down David Wood's entire argument, because the Quran is clear, only Allah can forgive sins. The Bible is clear that nowhere in the Bible does it say only God has that ability to forgive sin. So this argument backfires and doesn't work for David Wood's whatever David Wood's trying to prove.